So over the years, there have been two things that have come to my attention fairly regularly for dysfunction. One is the building department and the other one is New Richmond government. So those two things came together after the very unfortunate New Richmond flood, and my heart goes out to people in New Richmond that were impacted by the flood. The building department was involved in inspections, and there was a lot of consternation, and the head of the building department got fired, and there were several properties where the power and or gas seemed to get turned on without proper authorization. So I dug into those things, and today I went back to the building department to ask them questions about new information they had sent me that frankly doesn't make any sense. So the building department's dysfunction is something that has come to my attention over the years. By the way, I'm not blaming the current people in the building department. I might blame some of them if they acquiesce to this or they don't whistleblow on it. But I'm not blaming them. I think that a lot of areas in Clermont County government are very bad work environments where people are not empowered. A lot of that seems to have gone downhill. The more years David Painter's in office, the more years it goes downhill. But the building department, you might recall, had a guy named Carl Lamping that I ended up getting fired because Carl Lamping was the head of the building department. Him and his son were involved in purchasing a condemned house that the building department had condemned and then flipping it and then making a lot of money on the deal. So that's an example of building department dysfunction. But I hear all these stories all the time of improper inspections, inspections not taking place, massive problems being missed during inspections, both on the homeowner side where I've had a homeowner come to me about literally tens of thousands of dollars of expenses they've incurred because of things not caught in inspections that were obvious issues. But I've also had sources come to me about improper inspections taking place at the Purina factory as well. So it crosses both home and industrial properties. So as I said, I went back to the building department today to ask them about these houses in New Richmond. So on April 9th, you guys, not me, said that the house at, what's that address, 622, needed a meager and pressure test. Okay, now flip to the next page. They're printed two-sided, so. I think you can also have the green button. On April 9th, you guys said in your own filing that the house at 624 needed a meager and pressure test and had service wire issues. Okay, and then as part of that, those next couple pages are all your pictures. Those are building department pictures of the wire. Okay. Okay, now, did you skip a page there? Let's see. Okay, so then when I was in on May 30th, I'm sorry, yeah, I think it was May 30th. You know, Heather, you told me you guys were working on a letter at some point. You gave me kind of the template, the incomplete template of the letter. Okay, so now let's go forward another page. Then, you know, you said here that I had asked you several times, Heather, about Mr. Feldkamp, the fire chief in New Richmond, contacting this office and was told he had not. And but then you said that he talked with him just yesterday in a note on May 9th. Is that correct?
I did talk to him. I'm not exactly sure if it's May 9th, but probably so, yes. We played phone tag a few times.
Okay, so, but I'm a little confused because I talked to him in a recorded call on May 30th, and he said that he had never talked to you.
Can we look at that phone number?
So that he had not contacted the building department, and you might remember this, Heather. Chief Feldkamp was going to contact the building department that upcoming Monday. Friday was the 30th. In a recorded conversation I had with him, he said he had not contacted or talked to the building department about these properties. And he said he was going to do so on Monday, whatever that date would be after the 30th of May.
You're the one who told them to do it. Why didn't you go back to the building department? because the building department never showed up that day. That's how I was there in the first place.
So you're going to follow up with the building department on Monday on these things?
Yeah, I think at this point, for some of the information that you have given me, absolutely I will.
And I asked you on Wednesday and I think on Friday that week, and at that time he had not, and you said that you had talked to Heath, and he had not talked to Heath. Have you received any contact from Feldkamp?
No.
Okay, so now
I asked Heath too. I've not heard anything.
Okay, so I'm just pointing out that's very inconsistent. So what was the point of the call on May 9th then? On or about May 9th?
That was just a conversation between me and him about the flood.
About these particular properties?
Yes.
And what was the context of that? Because this is May 9th is thereabouts, whatever that date is. That's a month after your own department issued those, whatever you call those things, the front 2 pages saying meager and pressure tests were required. And I didn't get those records until, after May 9th, I believe. So what was the outcome, or what was the point of the call on May 9th?
I'll stand with that.
I couldn't hear because of the,
Chief just wanted to talk to me about it.
is this on? Because that one's like screaming loud.
They noise cancel.
Okay, but I can't hear him hardly at all. Okay.
Yeah, it was just a conversation about,
1 second.
Did you instruct him at that time that those houses needed to get meager and pressure test and that the wiring was bad on one of them?
I told him that we still have an open code case that it needs to be fixed, and that's what this letter explains.
So was that resolved? So was anything resolved on the call on May 9th?
There was nothing to resolve, it was just a conversation.
So wasn't there something to resolve that you had an open, I don't know what you call those documents, order on your paper that those houses needed meager and pressure tests, and one of them had a bad service wire?
That's what that letter's about right there.
But this letter is a month later.
Yeah, we're
More than a month later. It's almost 2 months later, a letter, okay? And so back then, the reason I'm asking you, Mr. Wilson, is because I watched that you just got promoted to be head of this department.
And we also, the board just today hired a new county building official, chief building official, Heath Wilson. He's been with the county for 22 years. He knows everything in and out from the building department. And I'm real optimistic that Heath is going to take on these challenges and make the building division receptive and make it efficient for everyone involved.
Okay, my understanding, to be honest, is that Bruce Crase was fired because he pushed back on turning on this power at these properties. So that was one of the factors that caused Bruce Crase to be dismissed. So these power got turned on. You have a fire chief contacting you on May 9th, a month after you have an open order, or whatever you would call that they need meager and pressure test, and one of them has a bad service line, and you don't resolve anything?
Hi, do you need public health?
Yes.
You were working on resolving
I was
it.
going to,
And Heather didn't know about this call on May 9th until she sent me a note, because I had repeated discussions with her on contact between Feldkamp and anybody in the building department. I was repeatedly told there wasn't any.
Or public health? Those are.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I don't hear any noise coming out of this on my side.
Okay.
These other ones, when the person on the other side talks, it's very clear. This one, there's no noise.
And now.
Yeah, the conversations between the chief and I mean, I talk to chiefs all the time. It was just a conversation that's irrelevant.
But you said it was a conversation about these specific properties. Wouldn't that conversation naturally be, we need to get meager and pressure tests done on those. They shouldn't have been turned on. You, Chief Feldkamp, don't have the legal, you don't have the legal standing to order a turn on. If I were head of a building department, I would be very concerned that you have people cowboying it out there that don't have the proper authorization, that are ignoring your own department's orders. And a month afterwards, you're just having a social conversation with them?
This is how we're extremely busy. We have hundreds of code cases.
Whenever multiple entities going off at the same time, it's hard to hear. So whenever we'll send them.
Okay, again, I can barely hear you. This one is like screaming loud. This one, you can't even hear.
Download the
So
The only,
your answer is you're busy? But you had time for a call on May 9th, and on April 9th, you issued. I think people in this county are concerned because I've had people coming to me about improper inspections at the Purina plant and at other places, that the building department's in a bit of disarray.
Mel should have it in there.
people have their opinion.
They can,
Thank you for handing me this back, but I wasn't done.
So we're gonna call this number right now and
That's what.
just go ahead and tell you, right?
I can't hear you because the one is screaming loud and this one makes no noise.
that I have for the village.
That's all we're,
Williamsburg.
that's the process.
I'll check with them, just make sure that they don't need anything,
I can't hear you again.
just so that we can get the ball rolling on if they do need something first.
Can you talk through this one since this one's loud? You're not allowed to talk through the one that works. Okay. In June, those two cases said open. Do they still say open, or have they magically gotten closed?
No, they're still open.
So then why isn't the 622, or am I saying why doesn't that one, why aren't there requests that they need to get the meager and pressure test done? Your own order, your own inspector said that was what was required.
Because we could not get into the building. So that's why we put that on there, but the electric's been turned back on, so. The only issue right now is the sheathing for this 620.
Okay, so then those cases, if you printed out those records right now, they're updated to say they're no longer open, or the one is, so that first one, that should be closed now, right? Based on what you just said, that would be closed because you said it doesn't, it's resolved because you decided to close it.
I haven't decided to what to do with 622. I think it's, right?
Yeah, the two addresses are 620.
624, we're working on getting that closed.
Why didn't the letter for 624 reference the required meager test and pressure test?
Because it's all back on.
So,
So if I go, so in the future, just so I know this, and all Clermont Countyans can know this, if they're told they need to do some test on an electrical system, you know, like we had an issue with our post lamps once, and they told us we need to do some degauss to some test that's, you know, if we go ahead and turn it on, then we don't have to do the test, because as long as we turn it on, then the test, then you don't have to do the test, you guys say.
So we're good to go.
Yeah, you guys are good.
I just think it'd be important for Clermont Countyans to know that they don't have to do what you tell them.
we inspect and report to what we see. I can't,
Did somebody re-inspect those houses?
I don't know. Well,
Well, how would you know, you just made a representation that they're closed because the water didn't hit this and we didn't turn, and they're turned on. But I just asked you, did somebody re-inspect the houses, and you said you don't know.
we didn't turn the electric on. Duke Energy turned the electric on. And they provided information on why they did that.
Has Commissioner Painter been personally involved with these cases? No, that's your testimony per se. Are you aware of Bruce Crase having issues that part of which contributed to his firing being that he objected to power getting turned on without proper testing?
I have no idea what Bruce has said or done or will, no, I have no idea.
Which one of these do I describe?
Okay, and your promotion to the head of the building department became effective on, I know it was presented on June 18th, but when did that become?
Building, so you can inspect part of the building and
June when?
briefly describe proposed work.
So the day after you became head of the building department is when the letter that only has one of what should have been 5 issues across 2 addresses, and I haven't even focused on the one on, the other one that turned up the house on some property on Front Street. You know, there was a third one that turned up.
You're all set.
Remember, I only found out about these because people came to me. Okay, people came to me that power was being improperly turned on, that Commissioner Painter was personally involved, and that the building department basically is in disarray.
Speak to the building department is not in disarray. I'm taking care of that. I'm working 2 jobs right now, and when I am able to focus on being the building official, these things will get straightened out. But right now, we sent out the letter, and that's what we always do, to follow up with that complaint code case that they need to fix the wire. So
But
that's,
why not the other code case?
we have nothing to stand on that code case. The electric was turned on. We've turned the electric on. We have no repercussion for that.
Well, okay, so then in theory, yet those cases shouldn't, but you also told me that they're both open. You know, what you're saying makes no sense. Your inspector ordered a Meagher's test and a pressure test.
Building will need.
Yes.
Your inspector, I'm looking at the document, your inspector ordered a Meagher test and a pressure test. Isn't that a statement of fact?
It's not an inspection.
Your inspector said a Meagher test and pressure test were required. It's right on your form that I'm looking at right now. Your inspector said that, not Chris Hicks,
No.
not Heath Wilson,
You're not under.
not Heather, your inspector.
That's not okay. The Meagher test is not an inspection.
Yeah, but it's a requirement. It says, checklist comments, Meagher and pressure test required.
We're not worried about 622 because the electric and gas is already turned on. We're following up with 624. That's where it is right now. So that's all we have.
So the message is just turn it on and then our building department in Clermont County doesn't care.
Property information, project details, if you're.
Okay, so let's stop right there. Of course, I could splice in some video of Scott Wolf, the assistant fire chief, telling me to lick his balls, or I could splice in some video of David Painter running away from answering any questions about this. But I want to focus on here on that there is something wrong in the building department. This was from April, it's now June 25th, and it's still this kind of crazy circular reference answer. They're open, but we're not doing anything. And nothing that clearly and articulately puts this to bed. You know, if it were just, you know, the inspector made a mistake, you know, we've fixed the paperwork, the cases are now closed, I would still think something was fishy as hell from that, but at least that would be a story. But you get right now, everything's still open, but we're not doing anything about anything, and we're confused about what conversations we had.